criticize those people and you say, well, I'm sorry, but you're 100 votes short, even though the next one is 500 votes short, I think you would have problems like you've never seen before. I think bad things would happen. I really do. I believe that. I wouldn't lead it, but I think bad things would happen.
All right, joining us now with reaction, author of Duplicity, former Speaker of the House and Fox News contributor Newt Gingrich. When did Republican voters ever give a rip about what the Washington Post thinks anyway? Was that designed to get to weak Republican rhinos? Is that who the message was for?
Well, look, I assume the Post editorial board was communicating to the Washington establishment in both parties, but I think it's ironic. Has the Post editorial board want to save democracy from Secretary Clinton, who sent out over 2,000 emails that are violations of national security secrets? Do they want to save us from Secretary Clinton, whose husband, with a $2 billion pouring through the Clinton Foundation, clearly was involved in conflicts of interest? I mean, somehow it's a very one-sided liberal view. It'll have no impact on the Republican Party, but it may reassure some of the establishment members in Washington that being piously opposed to Trump is the true religion. I think most Americans will ignore it and will continue down the road of real change.
Yeah, and then you have John Boehner. He's supporting. So, well, anybody can be nominated on the convention floor. He wants Paul Ryan. He called Ted Cruz Lucifer. So a lot of the establishment is, well, I mean, you can't make it. I'm glad it amuses you, but
well, it was a bad day. You know,
a bad day for who?
John had a bad
John?
day, and yeah, that's when he called Ted Cruz Lucifer. It was a bad day.
Okay, but bad day for him. But there's more than that. You got these meetings that we keep reading about. There was a meeting in Washington today. Our mutual friend Eric Erickson was among the people there. We've heard from Ben Sasse, the senator. He won't vote for Trump.
Look.
And then you have this. Let me play this for you. You have Curly Hagelin from North Dakota said, we choose the nominee, not the people. Not the people. What's this?
The rule says specifically that it's a vote of the delegates at the convention to determine if there's a majority.
Voters.
Not a primary vote. Primary votes are not considered. It's the delegates' votes. The media has created the perception that the voters will decide the nomination, and that's the conflict here. Political parties choose their nominee, not the general public, contrary to popular belief.
You know, how do you think the average person feels hearing that from an establishment type?
Well, that takes you back before 1912. I mean, that attitude is hopeless and doesn't reflect anybody. But let me say for a second about the Eric Erickson kind of approach. Let's be honest. If you want to help elect Hillary Clinton, then help elect Hillary Clinton and a radical Supreme Court. But don't give us any pious baloney that you're going to be for some virtuous middle way. There's no virtuous middle way here. You're either for the Republican nominee, whether it's Trump or Cruz, or you're for the election of Hillary Clinton. There's no middle ground here. Functionally, anybody who doesn't vote for the Republican nominee is helping elect Hillary Clinton and establishing a very radical Supreme Court.
I totally agree with that analysis. I think you said it very measured. There are only two people left that have a path to the nomination. And right now, my delegate count is Trump is anywhere between 673, where Bloomberg has it, and 690. Ted Cruz between 411 and 420. So it's a much harder path for Senator Cruz, but mathematically, he's in this. So, but I sense that a lot of these people don't like either Trump or Cruz. And isn't the reason that John Kasich is staying in and Mitt Romney is supporting Kasich in Ohio and Rubio in Florida with robocalls is because they want this brokered convention, hoping that they'll get to the 5th round of voting and they'll have a consensus candidate that they can put upon the people in spite of their voting?
Look, Sean, you have to have some sympathy here. They deeply dislike.
I do.
Think about it.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
This is like a sitcom. They deeply dislike Cruz, and they are deeply afraid of Trump. And so they're sitting around. I mean, none of these establishment types back a year ago, if you had said to them, we're going to get down to Ted Cruz versus Donald Trump, they would have all said you'd lost your mind. Now they're losing their minds because the objective reality is you're either going to get Senator Cruz, who's I think, run a very intelligent campaign in a setting where he's up against a huge phenomenon, or you're going to get the phenomenon himself, Donald Trump. But there's not going to be a third name in contention. Kasich, in a sense, is in a race to be vice president, but he's not going to become the nominee. And much as I love John, he's just simply not going to be the nominee. One of these two guys, either Donald or Ted, is going to be the nominee. And the Washington establishment of the Republican Party is just in complete denial.
I said that the other night. I said the one big story that came out of Tuesday night, mathematically it's over, and the establishment lost. Because, and I would argue they're both insurgent candidates coming from very different points of view. Let me ask this, because opposition, we know I love your smile. Okay. It's not a setup question.
No, I'm curious what you're going to ask.
Okay. So you have two wings that are attacking Trump. You got the establishment wing that hates him. You got the Ted Cruz supporting conservative wing that doesn't like him. And some are saying never Trump. I'm saying never Hillary. That's my point of view. So, is it that some conservatives, because I've interviewed him a lot, he said he will eliminate Obamacare health care savings accounts, would replace it. It's up on his website. He said that he'd build a wall, and I get the sense he's serious. He's actually going to put the wall up. He said he even likes the penny plan and balanced budgets. He said he's going to give education back to the states, all conservative positions, and he said he'd support Supreme Court nominees like Scalia and Thomas. Why do people, even though he says this, there is deep suspicion? Why do you think that is? Is it earned because he was a New York businessman?
I mean, first of all, because he's Donald Trump. I mean, this is a guy who has been a wild man, who dominated the society pages, who has had a life that was clearly outside of politics, who said a lot of things as a standard New York business guy getting along in one of the most liberal cities in the world. And now, all of a sudden, he's showing up as the great conservative champion. So if you're a true blue conservative, and you want somebody who's thoughtful and who's read all the major conservative books and who understands Hayek and Friedman, Donald Trump just unnerves you. I mean, you keep thinking to yourself, I mean, this would be like taking some of these intellectuals into a blue-collar bar, and having them try to watch a hockey game. I mean, this is really different for them, and it's going to take them a while to get used to it. But I have a lot of respect for somebody who says, boy, if you want a principled conservative, Ted Cruz clearly gets it all. And he does. I mean, Cruz is as intellectually solid a conservative as you're going to find in America. Trump is really an anti-left, anti-political correctness, anti-stupidity American nationalist. I mean, he's a new kind. Trumpism is a new evolution from where we've been. I think it will be more destructive of the left than anything we've seen from conservatism since Ronald Reagan. But I think it's a unique blend of things.
The next logical question is, and to add to his list of what he tells me in interviews, and, after he says it 15 times, I would tend to believe that they're serious. He says he's pro-life, pro-Second Amendment. He has a right to carry, for example, in New York City, very hard to get. So some people may doubt him for the reasons you discussed. Do you believe him? Do you think he would govern in the way, in the outline or what he's promising?
Yeah, I think Donald Trump is a man who had achieved everything he dreamed of. He was nationally famous. He had the Miss Universe contest. He had a #1 TV show. He'd written New York Times bestsellers. He's worth billions of dollars, plus or minus. You can argue between 4 and 10. He has a terrific family, great kids, great grandkids, and he looks around and he says one day, what can I do now? Because I don't really need to make any more money. And he thought, the country's a total mess. I think there's an opportunity for leadership. I'm going to dive in and try to lead. Now, I think he's got a tremendous amount to learn because this is a very different business than just being rich. But I think he's been learning pretty rapidly, and I think he is essentially going to dismember the bureaucratic, unionized structure of power that is crippling America. I think that will be good, just as I think, by the way, Ted Cruz is an absolutely sincere opponent of the old order that has been crippling America. So I take Trump at his...
So then the next question...
by the way...
Could that Reagan coalition that Cruz is trying to put together, could that be put back together, or has the country moved on? Has the country shifted? Has the demographics shifted?
No, I think there's a variation on the Reagan coalition. Remember, Reagan did very, very well with Latinos. Reagan did very, very well with young people. I mean, Reagan, but I think in your own time you've got to put together your own circumstance. My only point would be, any president ends up in situations they didn't dream of, doing things they didn't think they would do. Do I think that Donald Trump in some ways will be frustrating and disappointing? Sure. Do I think Ted Cruz in some ways would be frustrating and disappointing? Sure. Do I think either one of them would be dramatically better than Hillary Clinton? Absolutely, with no question at all. For America's future, the gap between where Hillary will take us in corruption, in union bossism, in big government destructiveness, and in radical values, and where either Cruz or Trump would take us is so big that no reasonable person can doubt that whatever you think about Trump's sincerity, he will be dramatically better than Hillary Clinton.
I think extraordinarily well said, and I think a lot of people are going to have some soul searching to do because there's a lot of anger and emotion flying out there, and all you need to do is look at social media and you'll see it. And at the end of the day, if people don't unite, Hillary has a path then to the White House, which wouldn't be good for the country. All right, I have a very important question for you when we get back. We'll continue.